Good morning YouTube, this is Amisbro, and today we are doing another anime review, and this one is for the anime review series. We're taking a look at the 11-episode series Terror in Resonance, alternatively known as Terror in Tokyo or Zankyou no Terror. This series tells the story of two young men named 9 and 12. Yes, that's their names. They were born into a world that they do not belong. At least that is the way it's explained to you. And at first, you don't really understand anything about the character. The only thing you know is they're terrorists. They are a two-person group called SPHINX. And they like to deliver announcements of their bombings, their potential bombings, to the citizens, but they do it in a very unique manner. They use a video streaming site. Matter of fact, if you've actually seen one of the episodes, and if you look at my Facebook, you will know exactly what streaming service they use, because it might look a little familiar to you. But they use this streaming service to deliver a riddle to the citizens. And they always say this: if you can solve the riddle by the time we designate that the bomb is set to go off, the bomb is yours. In other words, you can disarm the bomb and we won't do anything. Interestingly enough, unlike most terrorists, they always make sure that they give ample enough warning so that people can be evacuated. This becomes actually a running theme through the series, and makes for a very interesting moral situation when they meet one of their arch nemesis. Now, there's another character we have to talk about. There's two other characters we have to talk about, actually. Well, three. One is named Lisa. She is a high school student who, let's just say, she's not the happiest person. You might say she's chronically or clinically depressed. That's the best I got. By the way, her full name is Lisa Mikashima, I believe. And she meets 9 and 12 when they transfer into the high school. Matter of fact, 12 is the one that meets her and sees when she's getting bullied on a diving board at a swimming pool. It's a hot summer day too when this happens. Little does anybody realize, however, that, well, their fortunes are in some ways going to be interconnected forever at this point. Another central character in the series is named Shibazaki. He is a second-generation atomic bomb survivor, and he's also, at least at the start of the series, a detective for the Metropolitan Police Department in Tokyo. And he is very adept when it comes to riddles. This becomes important because, like I mentioned, the way that people determine where the bombs are placed is through solving the riddle. The answer to the riddle is a location. He becomes, I don't want to say an ally, but he becomes a very central figure in a very twisted and tangled web between the Japanese government, the American government, the American FBI, and of course the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. And then of course there's one more person we need to talk about. The white-haired psychopath known as Five. And yes, when I say psychopath, it's because her methods of getting to people are by and large more sadistic than even 9 and 12 want to be. They at least give people a warning to say to get the hell out of Dodge. She, not so much. She has a bone to pick with 9 and 12 specifically. And this actually dates back to a part of their backstory, which they do a really interesting job with dealing with backstory in this series. I'm going to tell you that right now. Occasionally what happens is one of them, usually 9, who's the black-haired kid with glasses, he gets these really horrible headaches. And what happens is he'll flash back to one of the settings that the show takes place in. Matter of fact, if you watch the opening to the show, if you watch the opening of the show, which the opening is called Trigger by Yoko Kanno, you will notice where part of it is. Let me drop some knowledge for you. 9, 12, and 5 are 3 of 26 kids that were brought into a place called the Settlement. This was for something called the Athena Project. Now, what was the Athena Project for? I'm not going to tell you that. But I will tell you that they were either the blessed ones or the cursed ones. That's the way I'm going to leave it. I will tell you that 5 ended up going into was adopted by the American government. 9 and 12, they just ran. Should be noted that at the settlement, any and all children that died, did you know how they're remembered? They had a wooden stake hammered into the ground with their number on it. I will also tell you that the settlement had arguably the most fucked up logic I've ever heard of in a show. They said that the woman that was in charge of this said, names are a sign of love. So in other words, they weren't worthy enough to have a name. They were just given a number. You see where this is going? When you understand more of the backstory, and trust me, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into all this, you understand kind of their method, and even though you know that they're doing essentially bad things, you kind of am sympathetic to them. Now, I usually bitch and moan about that when it comes to series like this, but I can't do that here. I can't because I get it. They don't want to hurt people. Their methods suggest, yes, they wanted to blow things up. No, they didn't want to hurt you. They wanted you to live. Kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? That's what makes 9 and 12 so interesting. Especially once 5 comes in. Shibazaki makes things interesting because he plays the games with the riddles to try and figure out where the bombs are, to try and help the police department stop any form of casualty. When you understand that, and when you understand virtually everybody's role in the series, you really appreciate not just the story, but you appreciate the plot, you appreciate the character development. And trust me, there's enough of it, there's enough layers in this series that make you appreciate it. Let's talk about the animation now. This is... I want to say this is almost like... What's a good way to put it? It's almost like I want to say like early 90-ish era It's kind of like throwback animation to me. Like we would see in the West on some Saturday morning cartoons. And I actually appreciate that. I appreciate a series that goes back in many ways to the old school. Because we lose that appreciation for stuff like that when you see a lot of the really well done animation like JC Staff's Love Stage, or you see Black Butler series, or Book of Udapri, or you see Kuroko's Basketball. Hell, even Free. So to get to see like older style animation, at least that's the way it appeared to me, I love that, and I think you would too if you get the chance to see this series. It is 11 episodes, so that may make some people go, I don't want to watch it, because some people like really long, in-depth stories. And in reality, this one, even though it's 11 episodes, it does have an in-depth story. It has very well-defined characters, and it makes you care about everybody in some way. You're either loathing one character, or you're rooting for another, or you're trying to help, or you're hoping that, the detective can solve the riddle before the bomb goes off. There is one huge, big overlying plot that I'm not going to tell you about that occurs in this series. It starts at the very beginning of episode 1, and it pretty much builds up to the final episode, when everything goes down. Now, this series, I'm going to say this now, it might make some people uncomfortable because of the subject matter it is dealing with. It is dealing with terrorism. Some people, especially living in this country, when you see government buildings blow up or whatever, that might make you really leery to watch it. And I can understand that. They do, at the beginning of every episode, make you understand this is a work of fiction. Any resemblances to real people or groups are completely coincidental. They're not intending it to be, a real depiction. Matter of fact, in the description of the show, they call it, quote, an alternate version of Tokyo. So people don't think this really happened. I am going to give this series probably one of my strongest recommendations since Kuroko's Basketball. And the reason is simple. Too often, we are treated to series in a fantasy world, where realization is, where you have this, a lot of times, these things aren't going to happen. Fact. Even though you have that suspension of disbelief, there's still that part of your brain that goes, this can't happen, this can't happen, this can't happen. There is a bit of realism kind of lost in Kuroko's Basketball, but it's still a series that I absolutely have an appreciation for as my number one. This one came pretty damn close to being the new number one. When you watch this and you understand that even though it's an alternate universe, but things like this do happen, it may hit home close to home for some people, but it is a very enjoyable thrill ride if you can separate yourself from reality. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what I was able to do. Yes, we had the big thing in the big 9/11 attack. We've had other situations, the Oklahoma City bombings. We've had all those. I thought I was going to cringe watching this series, but I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it because I was watching buildings blow up. I enjoyed it because these kids know that, well, I say kids, they're like 17 years old, but they understood they didn't want people to die. They made sure people were out of buildings before they blew them up. They made sure there was little to no casualties. Injuries, maybe. Casualties, no. And you know what was even funnier? Towards the end of the series, there were people that actually either had found for sale or made their own replica SPHINX mask. There was at least one person in one of the episodes that admitted to being a fan of the terrorist group. So maybe they believed in their message a little bit, which is scary, but it's true. I'm going to tell you right now, do yourself a favor. Go watch this series. Start with episode 1, obviously, and watch it all the way through. You will not regret it. The only way you regret it is if you cannot separate reality from fiction. That's it. I was able to do it. Some people can't. I respect that. But if you watch it, you'll enjoy it. I promise you. Yeah, I try not to steer my viewers wrong. I'll tell you that right now. You have a good one. Because we are starting Gekkan Nozaki-Kun. Shoujo Nozaki-Kun starts today. And it starts around 3 o'clock. See you then. Bye-bye.